The likelihood of severe transboundary haze plaguing Singapore this year is at the lowest in at least 3 years. For the first time, the Singapore Institute of International Affairs annual Haze Outlook report rates the risk as green, the lowest on its rating scale. Previously, severe haze happened due to forest fires caused by regional drought, but it isn't expected to be unusually dry this year. And although the pandemic has put pressure on government coffers in Indonesia, there are signs it's taking forest and land management seriously. The pandemic is also disrupting land clearing activities, but experts warn of uncertainties ahead as rising prices of commodities like oil palm could influence agricultural activity. And for more, we are joined by Associate Professor Simon Tay, Chairman of the Singapore Institute of International Affairs. So first up, we know that there is a lesser chance of severe haze this year, but are there any events that could possibly raise the risk levels?
Well, I think I'll tell you, first things first, the caveat is that this is about a severe haze. I mean, there may well be episodes of limited haze, because fires do occur on forests and lands in Indonesia almost every year. But the possibility of a really bad haze, as we saw in 2019, is, for the first time, very low. And I think the emphasis is not just on the weather. In fact, the weather will be drier in the coming months. But the attitude and effort put in by the Indonesian government, and particularly the Ministry of Environment and Forestry under Minister Siti Nubaya Bakar. So, I mean, there are things that could go wrong, and that's the heart of your question. But the fact that they've been building up this momentum, this effort, despite the means they are committed to making this a legacy of the Jokowi administration. And I think that the pandemic was a big test over the last year, and they've come through quite well. They have, despite the pressures of the pandemic, continued to put emphasis on preventing these fires and making Indonesia as a whole more sustainable.
Is it fair to say, Professor, that COVID-19 has also, though, stalled land clearing and planting activities, which is a huge contributor to fires? And the question then is, how are affected farmers and companies reacting so far? And how will that in turn affect haze levels going forward?
That's a very good question. I think both the pandemic and the effect on prices and the behavior of the producers was really something unknown last year. Last year, as the economy of the whole world and Indonesia suffered, the prices fell. And that, with the difficulty of trying to expand, meant that people did not really push out very much. This year, prices are starting to rise. There is some danger that in a year or two, we will see more land clearing. But I think the situation won't be so quick in the coming dry season. And that's why we're giving it a green. More than that, in this period, Indonesia has undertaken to level off deforestation. And this commitment continues. In fact, it's a credit to Indonesia that as the world deforestation rates are going up, our neighbor is able to cap it, and successfully, at not just in the main islands, but really in coordination with the companies and a lot of the local governments. So I think for the coming months, we can have a degree of optimism that despite the pandemic and despite the inability to outreach and really educate farmers, this will be effective.
And also, let's talk about fire management and, how this pandemic could possibly would have hampered efforts. The potential impact of all of this.
Well, I think one of the factors that's changed in terms of fire management, it's not just that, you see smoke, you head out. The conditions and technology for monitoring the water levels, so getting real life data has improved dramatically at the company level. For the government agencies are monitoring and restoring peatlands and now mangroves. And Singapore has also, though we're not there physically, we've helped by the work of the Singapore-based ASEAN Specialized Meteorological Center. It's a mouthful, I know, but the key work they do using satellite and imaging is to give early warning to the people in Indonesia, to the government, to really start to cumulatively work together to make a real sea change in the way we're managing this. Companies too, on their plantations, which are huge, some of the plantations are bigger than Singapore, they're using more technology, drones, etc., to really get ahead of that fire problem using different images and information.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us as always, Associate Professor Simon Tay, Chairman of the Singapore Institute of International Affairs.